For years, my family treated me like a failure because I worked a boring bank job, while my brother paraded around in luxury cars. They mocked my cheap Honda and told me I'd never understand real business. But they didn't know I was secretly the youngest investment director in the bank's history, managing $1 billion portfolio. So when my brother walked into the boardroom to ask for a $5 million loan, expecting to impress a stranger, he found me sitting at the head of the table. He told me I wouldn't understand high finance. He was right, because I didn't just understand it, I was the one about to expose his fraud and send him to prison. If you've ever been dismissed by your own family when you needed them most, hit that like button and subscribe right now. You are not going to want to miss what happened next. My name is Sarah Anderson, and for 28 years I was the family punchline. I was the daughter who settled for a basic bank job, while my brother, Marcus, built his empire of luxury car dealerships. I was the disappointment who wore sensible suits instead of designer labels. I was the boring one who talked about interest rates at dinner, while Marcus closed million-dollar deals. What my family didn't know was that I wasn't just working at Sentinel Private Bank. I was the youngest investment director in the institution's 127-year history. I personally managed a portfolio worth $2.3 billion and controlled approval authority for every commercial loan over $500,000 in the tri-state area. They had no idea because I never told them, and I had very good reasons. It started 12 years ago when I was 16. My grandmother passed away and left me $50,000, her entire life savings. She was the only person who ever believed in me, who saw past my quiet nature and recognized something my parents never did. The will was explicit. The money was mine alone for my education. My father demanded I contribute to the family by giving Marcus $30,000 for his first dealership down payment. When I refused, citing Grandma's wishes, he said something I'll never forget. "Your grandmother wasted her life savings on the wrong grandchild. Marcus is going places. You'll be lucky to manage a cash register." I invested that $50,000 in my education instead. I got a full scholarship to a state school, but I used Grandma's money for living expenses, networking events, and finance certifications. While Marcus got family investments and constant praise, I built my career in silence. I did summer internships at regional banks, took night classes for my Series 7 and 63 licenses, and spent weekends studying for my CFA. By 23, I was an associate at Sentinel. By 25, a senior loan officer. By 27, investment director, the person who decided which businesses got funded and which didn't. The person who could greenlight an 8-figure loan or kill it with a single signature. My family knew I worked at the bank, but they assumed I was a teller, maybe a branch manager if they were feeling generous. I never corrected them because I wanted to answer one question. Would they ever value me without knowing about my success? The answer became clear at every family gathering. Marcus would arrive in his latest luxury vehicle, and my parents would parade him around like a prize. Marcus closed another dealership, 15 now, across 3 states. Mum would announce to anyone within earshot. When I arrived in my practical Honda Accord, Dad would pat my shoulder with barely concealed pity. "Still at the bank, sweetheart? Well, not everyone can be an entrepreneur like your brother." I'd smile and say, "Still there. It pays the bills." What I didn't mention was that my annual compensation package was $340,000, or that I had just approved a $12 million loan to a tech startup that would triple in value within 2 years. 3 months ago, the dynamic shifted. Marcus announced at Sunday dinner that he was expanding the empire. He was planning a flagship luxury dealership in the city's premium district. The crown jewel, he called it. "We're talking $5 million in inventory alone," Marcus bragged. "Bentley, Rolls-Royce, Lamborghini. Ultra-high net worth clientele only." My father beamed. That's my son. Thinking big. Always thinking big. Marcus continued, his chest puffed with confidence. I've got a meeting at Sentinel Private Bank next month. I need a $5 million line of credit for inventory and build-out. They'd be idiots not to approve it. My dealerships did $47 million in revenue last year. Something cold settled in my stomach. Sentinel Private Bank. My bank. A $5 million commercial loan. My approval authority. Sounds ambitious, I said carefully. Sentinel is pretty selective with their commercial lending. Marcus laughed. Please, Sarah. This is real business, not whatever paperwork you shuffle. Banks fight over clients like me. Mom patted his hand. Sarah wouldn't understand this level of finance, honey. She's never dealt with real money. I took a sip of water and said nothing. But I was already thinking about Marcus's financials. I'd seen his dealership group's name cross my desk twice in the past year, both times in risk assessment reports. High debt-to-equity ratio, concerning cash flow patterns and inventory financing that kept getting extended. I made a mental note to watch that account. Now, it was about to become my problem directly. Over the next 4 weeks, I did what I always did, my job. Marcus's loan application came through official channels. As investment director, anything over $500,000 landed on my desk for final review. I assigned it to my senior analyst, Maria, without mentioning the family connection. I wanted an objective assessment first. Maria's report came back with a massive yellow flag. Applicant shows strong revenue but concerning leverage ratios, the report read. Existing debt service is 43% of gross profit. 3 payment extensions in the past 18 months. Credit utilization is at 87% across all facilities. Recommend additional collateral or personal guarantee before approval. I dug deeper myself, pulling 5 years of financial statements, tax returns, and credit reports. The picture that emerged wasn't pretty. Marcus's empire was a house of cards, impressive from the outside, but hollow underneath. He had been borrowing to cover previous debts, using revenue from new dealerships to make payments on old ones. It wasn't growth. It was desperation. The new flagship location wasn't an expansion. It was a gamble to revenue his way out of a debt hole. I prepared my analysis with zero emotion. This wasn't about family. This was about my fiduciary responsibility to my institution. A $5 million unsecured line of credit to an already over-leveraged dealership group. Declined. Not even close. But I didn't cancel the meeting. I wanted to see how this would play out. The week before the appointment, Marcus was insufferable. At Sunday dinner, he brought architectural renderings of the new dealership. 12,000 square feet. Floor-to-ceiling glass, he bragged. This is going to put me in a different category entirely. Dad studied the plans with reverence. You've always had vision, son. Always. Marcus glanced at me dismissively. Sarah, you should come to the bank meeting. It might be educational for you. See how major deals actually get done. Mom laughed. Oh, Marcus. Sarah would be so out of place. Can you imagine? She probably doesn't even know what a commercial line of credit is. Something inside me snapped. It wasn't anger. It was calculation. Actually, that sounds interesting, I said calmly. What day is your appointment? Marcus looked surprised but pleased. Thursday, 2 p.m. But seriously, Sarah, this is going to be high-level stuff. Complex financial instruments. You might not follow the conversation. I'll try my best, I said, keeping my voice humble. Maybe I'll learn something. That Thursday morning, I dressed carefully. I wore my usual work attire, a tailored navy suit, and my Cartier watch, a gift to myself when I made director. I drove my Honda to the bank, parked in my reserved spot in the executive garage, and took the private elevator to the 42nd floor. My office overlooked the city through glass walls, with my name clearly on the door. Sarah Anderson, Investment Director. On my desk sat the file. Marcus Anderson, Anderson Luxury Auto Group $5 million LOC application. I knew every number, every discrepancy, every lie. At 1:45 p.m., my assistant, Jennifer, buzzed in. Your 2 p.m. is here. Shall I show them to conference room A? Give me 5 minutes, I said. Then bring them up. I walked to conference room A, the intimidating room where we negotiated 8-figure deals. I stood by the window, back to the door, reviewing my notes. At exactly 2 p.m., I heard voices in the hallway. My father's booming laugh, Marcus's confident tone, Mom's excited chatter. They had brought the whole family to witness Marcus's triumph. The door opened. Jennifer spoke professionally. Mr. Anderson, please make yourself comfortable. Miss Anderson will be with you shortly. I heard Marcus say to my assistant. Actually, funny coincidence. My sister works here. Basic position, but she was curious about the process, so we told her she could observe. I turned around. The look on Marcus's face was worth 12 years of condescension. Sarah? Mom's voice came out strangled. What are you doing in this office? I smiled and sat at the head of the 20-foot mahogany table. Hello, Marcus, I said calmly. Thank you for coming. Please sit down. Dad's eyes darted around the room, taking in the executive furnishings, the city view, and my position at the head of the table. I don't understand, Dad stammered. Where is the loan officer? You're looking at her, I said. I opened my portfolio. Actually, my official title is Investment Director. The color drained from Marcus's face. You ... you are the decision maker. I am, I said. I slid a document across the table. I've reviewed your application thoroughly. Before we discuss my decision, I need to clarify some discrepancies. Mom found her voice. Discrepancies. Marcus's businesses are incredibly successful. Mum, I said, my voice cutting through the room. You are welcome to observe, but the financial discussion is between Marcus and me. As his loan officer, I have questions. I turned to Marcus, who looked like he might vomit. Your application states $47 million in revenue last year. That's accurate, I began. What you didn't disclose is that your net profit margin was 2.1%. The industry standard is 7 to 9%. Can you explain why? Marcus's mouth opened and closed. It's industry specific. Luxury vehicles have different. No, they don't, I interrupted, sliding another page across. I pulled comparable dealership groups in your market. They are averaging 6.8% net profit. Your margins are depressed because you are servicing debt at unsustainable levels. Your total debt obligation is $23.7 million. Your debt service is consuming 43% of your gross profit. Dad tried to intervene. Now wait a minute, Sarah. I don't think you understand how business. Mr. Anderson. I used my professional voice, the one that made CFOs sit up straight. I have a graduate degree in finance from Wharton, 12 years of commercial lending experience, and I manage a $2.3 billion portfolio. I understand exactly how business works. Now, please let me finish with my client. The room went dead silent. You've also had 3 payment extensions in the past 18 months, I continued, staring at Marcus. You are borrowing from new acquisitions to cover old debts. That is a Ponzi scheme structure, Marcus. That's standard practice during growth phases. Marcus shouted, his voice shaking. It's not, I said. And neither is this. I pulled out a third document. I ran a full credit analysis. Your personal credit utilization is at 87%. I leaned forward. That's not standard practice, Marcus. That is embezzlement from your own company. Mom gasped. Dad looked like he'd been punched. You had no right to dig into my personal finances. Marcus yelled, turning red. I had every right, I said coldly. You applied for $5 million of my bank's money. We investigate everything. You built an impressive facade, the cars, the clothes, the big house. But underneath, you are drowning. I picked up the loan application and stamped it with the red ink stamp I kept for special occasions. Declined. Your application is denied. The risk profile is unacceptable. Marcus stared at the stamp. Sarah, you can't. If I don't get this loan, the other banks will call their debts. I'll lose everything. You've already lost everything, I said. But that's not the worst part. I opened the second file, the one I had kept hidden. I also pulled these records from our fraud detection unit. Over the past 2 years, you have been falsifying financial statements to your lenders. You overstated inventory values by 15 to 20% to secure loans. That is bank fraud, Marcus. A federal crime. Dad shot to his feet. Now listen here, young lady. Sit down, Dad, I said, my voice icy. And never call me young lady in my office again. He sat, shock written all over his face. I have already forwarded these findings to our fraud investigation team, I told Marcus. They are required by law to report to federal authorities within 48 hours. I suggest you retain a criminal defense attorney. Mom started crying. Sarah, he's your brother. How could you? I stood up, gathering my files. How could I do my job? I asked. How could I protect my institution from fraud? How could I refuse to enable someone who has been lying to banks for years? I walked to the window, looked out at the city, and turned back to them. You want to know the saddest part? I asked. None of this would have happened if you had just asked me for help 2 years ago when the trouble started. I could have restructured your debt. I could have saved you. But you never asked because you never thought I was capable. Because I was just the daughter with the basic bank job. I pressed the intercom button. Jennifer, please call security to escort our guests out. We're your family, Sarah, Dad pleaded as 2 security officers in sentinel uniforms appeared at the door. Families help each other. Do they? I asked, turning to face him fully. Where was that family loyalty when you told me I'd be lucky to manage a cash register? When Marcus called my career shuffling paperwork? When Mum said I'd never understand real money? I pulled out one last document from my personal file. It was yellowed with age. This is Grandma's will, I said, holding it up. Remember what you said when I refused to give Marcus my inheritance? Dad's face went pale. I read from the paper, my voice steady. Your grandmother wasted her life savings on the wrong grandchild. Those were your exact words, Dad. 12 years ago. I set the paper down gently on the mahogany table. Grandma didn't waste a penny, I said. She invested in the grandchild who would honor her sacrifice by building something real, not the one who would take shortcuts and lie to banks. Please escort these guests to the lobby, I instructed the security officers. As they walked toward the door, defeated and shamed, Mom grabbed my arm. You're destroying your brother's life. I gently removed her hand. Marcus destroyed his own life, Mom. I'm just refusing to pay for the wreckage. The door closed behind them. I stood alone in the conference room, hands steady, breathing calm. There were no tears, no regret, just the quiet satisfaction of a job done properly. 20 minutes later, the bank president, Mr. Morrison, called me into his office. Sarah, he said, looking troubled but respectful. I heard about the Anderson luxury auto meeting. I know he is your brother. That couldn't have been easy. It was the easiest decision I've made all week, sir, I said honestly. My job is to protect this institution. Personal relationships don't factor into credit decisions. He smiled. That is exactly why you are the youngest director in our history. Your judgment is flawless. The consequences cascaded faster than even I had anticipated. Within 6 hours, our fraud investigation team filed their report with federal regulators. By the next morning, Marcus's other lenders got wind of the investigation. 3 banks called their loans immediately. Another $8 million in debt came due within 30 days. Marcus called me 17 times that day. I didn't answer. By the end of the week, Marcus had filed for Chapter 11 bankruptcy. His empire collapsed. The flagship dealership deal died instantly. His luxury inventory was seized. Everything he had pretended to build crumbled like the house of cards it always was. But I didn't leave everyone behind. I quietly arranged for Marcus's 63 hourly employees, mechanics, receptionists, cleaners to receive their unpaid wages through a bank workforce protection fund. I helped the innocent people who deserved it. 3 months later, I received a letter on prison stationery. Marcus had been sentenced to 14 months in federal prison for bank fraud. The letter was short. Sarah, I was wrong about everything. You weren't the family disappointment I was. You built something real while I built lies. I'm sorry it took prison for me to see that. Grandma chose right. I kept the letter. Not out of sentimentality, but as a reminder that paper beats promises every single time. 6 months after the meeting, my parents' number appeared on my phone. I almost didn't answer, but curiosity won out. Hello, Sarah. Dad's voice sounded older, tired. We need to talk. About what? About how wrong we were, he said, his voice cracking. Your mother and I have been in therapy. We realized that we enabled Marcus's lies because we wanted to believe he was successful. And in doing so, we dismissed the daughter who was actually exceptional. Silence stretched between us. We don't deserve your forgiveness, Mom added, weeping on the other end. But we want the chance to know who you really are. If you'll let us. I thought about Grandma. She would want me to be strong, but not bitter. Here's what I'll offer, I said. Sunday dinners. Once a month, we start fresh. You ask about my actual life, my actual career. No comparisons to Marcus. No dismissive comments. If you can manage that, we'll see where it goes. Yes, Mom said immediately. We can do that. And one more thing, I added. I am starting a scholarship fund in Grandma's name for women pursuing finance careers. We'd like that very much. Dad whispered. That was 6 months ago. The dinners have been awkward, but genuine. They are trying. Marcus gets out of prison next month. I arranged for him to interview at a local Honda dealership for an entry-level sales position. The manager is a client of mine who believes in second chances. It's honest work. Marcus accepted it gratefully. Last week, I was promoted to Senior Vice President of Commercial Lending. At 31, I oversee a team of 43 professionals and manage a $4.1 billion portfolio. My office is bigger now. The view is better. And you know what? I still drive the same Honda Accord. Because my worth was never about what I drove, or wore, or displayed. It was about what I built when no one was watching. Grandma saw that in a 16-year-old girl when no one else did. She didn't waste a penny. She invested in exactly the right grandchild. If you think Sarah did the right thing by denying the loan to her own brother, smash that like button. And here is a question for you. If your family mocked your career for years, would you help them when they failed, or let them face the consequences? Let me know your honest thoughts in the comments. Don't forget to subscribe for more stories of success and justice.